Welcome to What Nobody Tells You, Practical Truths for a Better Life. What Nobody Tells You is a podcast about the hidden wisdom that actually helps you live better, emotionally, mentally, and spiritually. I'm your host, James Ferrigno. Join me as we explore the truths most people never hear in areas like practical tips on daily living, how to be vulnerable in a healthy relationship, and what it really takes to change your life from the inside out. Through honest solo episodes and deep conversations with guests from the world of social participation, healing, human development, and creatively navigating bureaucracy, this show brings practical insights you can use right away. This isn't surface level self-help. It's the real work, the quiet wisdom, the things nobody told you, but you should have. If you're looking for clarity, courage, and the tools of everyday life, this podcast is for you. Big news. I'm excited to announce the evolution of my podcast, introducing What Nobody Tells You, Practical Truths for a Better Life. This show is about sharing the kind of wisdom you don't usually hear, truths about personal growth, relationships, vulnerability, and daily living skills that actually make a difference in your life. You can actually apply this in a practical sense right away. These are conversations and insights meant to help you understand your life better, grow, experiencing more vulnerability, to live more confidently with more clarity. If you ever felt that traditional self-help didn't quite speak to you, this is the podcast for you. Same heart, deeper purpose, clearer mission. Welcome to What Nobody Tells You. Welcome to What Nobody Tells You, Practical Truths for a Better Life. I'm your host, James Ferrigno. Today, we're going to be talking about one size fits all. Now, this applies in many different areas of life. I have found that in education, in healthcare, in political representation, in many other fields, there's the prevailing idea that one size fits all is the best and easiest way to do everything. And I have found myself that I think the reality runs contrary to conventional wisdom. So there's a lot to this subject. It covers a lot of ground. We'll see how much we can get through in this podcast episode. I think I'll start with education. I'm a teacher, so I have a lot of experience in that area. And first, I want to go over what the situation is currently, and then we'll go into some solutions for it, at least something that you can do, right now to change that. So starting out with education, I've worked as both general education and a special education teacher, and there is some hope for this changing because I've seen it in special education now. The way education normally works is that in the United States anyway, and pretty much in most places around the world, public education and most private education too, though there are exceptions to this, Waldorf schools and other things where it doesn't work this way. But most kids are going to experience this, and most people have had an education similar to this. So, excuse me. Um, the way it works is that a curriculum is designed by a teacher or by the district, or lately, more often, a corporation that has designed this curriculum that is then given to the kids. So for all the testing that is done now, the standardized testing. So a lot of these things are actually designed by companies, but the same information, the same tests are given to all the kids. Now, the exception to this is in special education. The philosophy has begun to develop that you follow the child first. And in this area, I think this is a great improvement. But it's, only a few kids are getting this. So the way it works is that everyone's given the same thing, and it's expected that everyone should know the same thing, think the same way, but really in practice, every human being is unique. Every human being is different, and everyone brings unique skills to the table. It's you want lots of different people because they have different skills, different ideas, different abilities, because that's how difficult decisions get made. That's how things get invented. That's how problems are solved. And problem solving, I know from experience, works a lot better when you have a number of people that are coming from different perspectives, different backgrounds, who have different strengths and different weaknesses. So when you're educating human beings, to assume that they're all going to be the same and that they should have the same response to whatever question or test is hugely counterproductive and destructive, really, to creating and nurturing people and teaching them how to evolve and live in the world and be able to be productive members of society. And it doesn't work out so well, as we have seen. So that's what we have now, for the most part. There are some changes, as I said. And so if you have a child that is receiving special education and has an IEP, then you're in actually a little bit better position to be able to ask for services that are tailored for that child and not just general services given to everyone, which doesn't really work. And unfortunately, also in practice, those particular child-centered services that are geared for the individual uh, don't usually get provided. So what you have to do as a parent or guardian of a kid in special ed is you have to ask for everything. You have to fight for everything. You have to fight every step of the way. And when your child has an issue or when they have something that they need, some service they need, like extra time or a different type of testing or whatever it is, or a different method of being able to deliver the information, whether it's kinesthetically or verbally or auditorially, different kids have different strengths, and most of us know this, that some people are visual learners, some people are audio learners. This is just how it is. And if they all get it in just one way, the same way, it's not gonna, you know, be very good for the kids. So, but as a parent or guardian, you really have to make sure that they're getting those services. And you really have to go to the administration, go to the meetings. And often I've seen what will happen is the parent maybe just isn't up to speed on exactly what's available, on exactly what they can ask for and what they can't. And unfortunately, the administrators, I'm not blaming any particular individuals, but just the way the system works, the administrators need that money for other things. So they will tend to not offer services and they will tend to say, oh, this is what's available. And they will mention the cheapest thing and they will pretend that the other things that might cost them some money don't exist. And so you have to educate yourself on knowing what is available and what you can ask for, which is anything that's available. And you really have to fight for it every step of the way. So, really the squeaky wheel in this, it really, the difference between asking for nothing and asking for everything is enormous. So, and that's really the solution in most of these one size fit all situations is being the squeaky wheel, being the person who asks for what they want, being the person who asks questions. And you will find that there will be pushback, that the people in charge won't, because usually it means it's going to cost them money or time. And they don't want to do that most of the time. Some people are fine with it. Some people are happy to do that, happy to provide you with that, whatever you need. But most will not want to give you their time and money. So there will be a lot of pushback and you really have to fight for it. And you have to be certain that, a little bit confident in yourself that you deserve what you're asking for, that your child deserves what you're asking for, and that it's something that by law you can ask for. And if you educate yourself on what is available by law, then you will really be in a much better position. So learning about it, just like anything else, learning about it, asking for it, sometimes not even asking for it, but demanding it, because often they will try to not give it to you. Even if you ask for it, they will say, well, that's not available. That's not right. We don't have to give you that, but they do. And they just don't. They just don't do it, even though legally they have to. And so that's rampant. I've seen that all across many districts in the United States, chiefly in California where I am. But I've heard about and seen about it in other places as well. It seems to be everywhere. So really, you have to fight for it, and it's that way in everything. Higher education as well, like financial aid, getting financial aid, you have to ask for it, you have to apply for it, you have to know about it. I didn't know about that when I was younger, and it can really change your life. The college has become unaffordable for most people. It's exorbitantly expensive, even for the public schools that are supposed to be cheap, that used to be free in California, are now cost tens of thousands of dollars. Uh, so many people, most people, need some kind of financial assistance. So knowing that that's there, and knowing that you have a right to it and that you can apply for it is really important to doing that. And it's like staying on top of it, going through, filling out the paperwork, asking questions. I mean, now you have AIs online that you can just ask all the questions about it that you need, which is a real benefit in that way. So do that there as well. And the same thing occurs in special ed, but also in regular education, at the college level, to do the research. Like I said, very simple now. You just type it into Google. Very simple to do some just basic research, find out what's available, ask for it, fight for it, uh, make sure that you get it. And don't necessarily believe the people in charge when they tell you what it is you are entitled to and not entitled to. Because usually, in my experience, I'm not saying this is not statistical fact, but in my anecdotal experience, they usually do not want to provide you the information or the service, and will not offer it to you, and will even deny that you have the right to it once you ask for it. So this is in the education system, at the college level and at the elementary and secondary level. So research it, know what the laws are, know what your rights are. Very simple on Google. Ask for it, apply for it, stay on top of it. Here's another thing with I found this with student loans, with really most anything. When you're dealing with the government or a large bureaucracy, almost all potential problems or disasters can be avoided by just simply staying on top of it, by calling them, by messaging them, by continuing to stay in contact with them at all times. Even when you don't think anything's going wrong, contact them anyway. I used to, I remember with student loans, it's like, it's so complicated. They do strange things. Things are always changing. It's like, and then all of a sudden you owe a bunch of money, or all of a sudden you're late on something. So what I used to do was, this is when you called everyone, but you can do it in other ways as well. Whatever way you need to contact them is every couple of months, just contact them. There's nothing going wrong, contact them. And when I did that, fairly often, there would be something wrong going on, and I just didn't know about it, wasn't told about it. The letter got lost, or they never sent one, whatever it was. So just really, you got to stay on top of things. When you ignore them, they get really bad with the government. So, or really any large bureaucracy. So that's the simple explanation of how it works and what to do with the educational system. Just a little disclaimer here. I'm sharing general education and consumer self-advocacy ideas. I am not diagnosing or giving medical instructions. Now, the medical system, we have the same kind of thing going on. They have been able to serve some number more people, but by kind of creating these assembly line things. But what they've done is they've established this system in the managed care where there's these echelons of service. And what will happen is you get routed, like they've limited the power of the different people, of the doctors, to be able to assign things to you, and made it so that everything has been compartmentalized. So you go to these different people for different things, and only the expert or the specialist can recommend particular things. But you have to have the GP recommend you to the expert. So what's good to do is there's a lot of services available there that you're not getting, right? And also, here's another thing. Another thing that's fallen apart in the last couple decades is the diagnoses have started to be incorrect a lot more often, and they may not be right, because I've seen many misdiagnoses lately, and it looks like, they get, this is the one size fits all issue, is it's very narrow, and it's a myopic tunnel vision of humans and of the world. And all of the people in these systems that work in them have been indoctrinated by them, like all of us have been from youth, but now have been working in them for several years or however long they've been working in them. And the longer they work in that system, unless they're an exceptional person, they become narrower and narrower and more focused. And it becomes less and less likely they're going to provide you with a service, or that they are going to question their own decision. So when they see something, they will diagnose it quickly, usually because they're also under pressure, because the time has been taken away by all the managed care system, and the pressure of the insurance companies. So they will have very little time and no real need to question their own decision. So they will make quick, snap decisions about your diagnosis, and then they will just push forward with whatever that is. So you need to catch it when that's happening, and do your own research online, find someone else to talk to, call up whatever system it is and get them to give you a second opinion, whatever you have to do. Again, you have to be the squeaky wheel. You have to spend time. You have to make effort. You have to push, push, push. Otherwise, you're just going to get routed through the system like a cog in the machine, and you're not going to get the proper health care, and you may get some really destructive, bad health care. I've seen a lot of that going on as well. So, and I think this is true in all these different areas. When they have the one size fits all system operating, which it's operating in a lot of places. Just a little disclaimer here. I'm sharing general education and consumer self-advocacy ideas. I am not diagnosing or giving medical instructions. If what's going on with you is anywhere but the center of the bell curve, anywhere but the most common thing, because that's what they're going to go to first. So they used to be treating, not the very ends, but the middle of the bell curve, and that is narrowing as time goes by. So more and more people are being misdiagnosed and not given the health care they need as time goes by, because they're treating the more and more common thing and overlooking more and more things. So after I recorded this podcast, I went and looked up some of the information regarding misdiagnosis, and I haven't independently verified every number in these summaries. So treat this as a starting point to check the original sources directly, but I will provide you with the original sources. The first source is Johns Hopkins Medicine. Quote, misdiagnoses are a severe, under-resourced public health crisis in the U.S., with recent studies estimating that approximately 795,000 Americans die or are permanently disabled annually due to diagnostic errors. While data shows that diagnosis-related malpractice claims in inpatient settings increased over a 20-year period, the overall prevalence remains alarmingly high at roughly 11% for serious diseases. That's from Johns Hopkins Medicine. This next information is from an NBC affiliate. And quote, key findings regarding misdiagnosis in the U.S. include high incidence of harm, about 1 in 18 patients, nearly 6%, visiting emergency rooms are misdiagnosed, with over 12 million Americans estimated to experience diagnostic errors in outpatient settings annually. Leading causes of harm, misdiagnosis of serious conditions, specifically stroke, sepsis, pneumonia, and lung cancer, account for the majority of this severe harm. Factors in errors. Key drivers include testing errors, miscommunication, and cognitive biases, e.g., anchoring on an initial wrong diagnosis, according to the ECRI's analysis. Disparities. Studies indicate higher rates of diagnostic errors and consequently more severe outcomes for women and minority populations, such as in the case of misdiagnosed melanoma or delayed care from pulse oximeter inaccuracies. That information is from NBC News, and they, within their report, are citing ECRI's analysis. The last bit of data is from the National Institute of Health. Quote, data shows that while awareness is rising, these errors remain a top cause of medical malpractice, with serious incidents in hospitals often stemming from communication failures, high workloads, and diagnostic testing issues, end quote. That's from the National Institute of Health. And as I said, this is just a starting point. I do not do exhaustive research. I am not a traditional healthcare professional, so do your own research. You can start with those sources and go from there. So, again, this is in general. This is an aggregate. This is the large group of people. There are certain agencies, places, there are particular doctors and nurses, there's individuals everywhere that are doing a great job, and where this is happening to a lesser degree or perhaps not at all in certain circumstances. If you have a lot of money to spend, you can avoid this simply with that. That's simple, but this is more for people that don't have millions of dollars to be able to throw at things when they need to. So that, of course, in any of these areas can solve almost any problem under the current system, because then it's one size fits all. Unless you have lots of money, then you are a special case and things will be adapted to you. You will not have one size fits all anymore. You'll have an individualized program for yourself. But that has to be purchased, and usually at a high price. So if you can't purchase that, like most of us can't, then I will repeat it again. Educate yourself. Look it up on whatever AI you like to use, or look up whatever AI is most appropriate for your thing, or check out a book from the library, whatever you have to do. Talk to people track down the information and find out what's going on in that area, and maybe get another professional opinion, and always educate yourself. So back to the GPs, when they send you to a whatever specialist, they will send you to them. And then what happens is they're just sending you to another person, and the communication falls apart in between often. And then that person, they don't know you. They're just going by just the small bit of information that they get during maybe a short office visit and a tiny bit of information they're getting from the doctor. So they're really not making a full educated decision or diagnosis on what's going on. So you really have to push on them as well. And I've noticed, back to the tier, they will tier it down so that you have to go a certain period of time unhealed or with the situation unresolved. I've noticed, like for physical therapy, before they will send you to the next tier where you can actually get the physical therapy. This is just physical therapy in general. What I've seen happen, because I had it years ago and more recently as well. And what they did is you go in and they give you a few exercises to do. And I've talked to a lot of other people too, and it seems that seems to be the thing they're doing now. So when I was younger and was in a car accident, many years ago, they sent me to physical therapy. You went into one of the locations, and I remember they were giving you heat and ice and electrostem therapy and ultrasound and a hot water pool, and giving you exercises and stretching as well. But there was this whole, and sometimes like a massage or something to loosen up your muscles, depending on what your injury was. But there was a whole array of things that you did in person. That's what physical therapy always meant and what it always was. And what I'm seeing now is, more often than not, it's simply go into an office and in 15 minutes, someone shows you 4 exercises to do and says, okay, do those for the next few months. And that's it. And really, you have to go a long time before they will send you to that next echelon where you can actually get physical therapy. And this used to be a case in a lot of these areas. They want lots of time to elapse so that they have fewer and fewer people that they have to send to the thing that costs them some money. So again, if you make noise, I'm not healed, stay on top of it. I want real physical therapy. I don't, like, these exercises aren't working. You just got to tell them that. You really have to speak up. And I've noticed with doctors, most people, when the doctor says you have this, they say, okay. When the doctor says, I'm prescribing this to you, they say, okay. And then they take the thing, just do what the doctor says. And, that was usually okay. 30 years ago, that was fine, but not so fine anymore. Not really great. It's not turning out well for a lot of people. You can't just take the thing they hand you without any thought of your own. So you really need to think about your own health and double check whatever it is they've said in, whatever different ways. You can't just believe them when you have no idea what it is. You don't want to just randomly do it. Um, and, I'm not telling you, how to heal yourself. Just a little disclaimer here. I'm sharing general education and consumer self-advocacy ideas. I am not diagnosing or giving medical instructions. But I am saying that in any area of life, healthcare, education, politics, whatever it is, you need to think about it for yourself. So the same thing in politics. Just because there's an ad or a commercial or like a flyer that comes to your house or something you see on TV or hear on the radio, that's nothing. Don't let that influence your vote, because that's paid for by somebody and it's not anything that should influence you in any way. But unfortunately, why elections often, there's other reasons as well, but one of the reasons that elections can go very wrong is because people are simply doing what they're told. I saw a study that said what determines with most people how they vote, what person they vote for, is simply name recognition. That's the most important factor. So, but what that means is that just hearing the name of a person will make you vote for them. But that doesn't give you any information on who they are or what they're up to. They might be up to, very nefarious things. You don't want to vote for them just because you know their name, just because it's familiar to you. So you want to do the research and think about it yourself. And what I do, if I don't know at all, I don't vote on that. I'm going to just guess. It doesn't going to help anybody. I do make a point to learn everything, when I vote. I do vote, and because I know exactly what I'm doing, because I research every single thing. In California, we have a referendum process, so we have these initiatives, and they will be titled and described as the exact opposite of what they are. So if you just go by the title of it, no, don't do that. You're going to get quite possibly the opposite thing. So, I mean, they do send out these voter books you can read, which have some information, like arguments on one side or the other, but really I found to be not all that helpful. There's an internet, and look at credible sources, which I realize are becoming fewer and fewer as time goes by. The best source in the world used to be the federal government. That is no longer the case in a lot of areas. There are some areas, there's like commondreams.org has accurate information. You can, one of the best sources of information I found is the 94.1 KPFA in Berkeley. They have a website, KPFA 94.1, and you can get accurate information there. Now, as it stands, I'm not saying all of the information in these things is inaccurate, but a lot of it is. And, the greatest tool of propaganda is omission. Simply just not putting it there, just not telling you things. Like, so people don't think about this, but like when they release documents and they redact them, well, that's propaganda. They're redacting. They always have some excuse about security, but really it's, they're omitting information. So I'm sure sometimes it's necessary to do that, but it seems to be done a lot. And so also, videos online, social media, even worse. Social media is the worst place to get information. It is highly, highly suspect at best. So you're better off watching television news than getting your information from social media. So I wouldn't get any of your information on what's happening from any form of social media. That's the world we live in. So, but if you want, actual journalism, there's some left. There's a few sources, not many. Yeah. So, but you can, there are some publications that still have some accurate information. At least the last time I checked, Rolling Stone magazine, reliable. Vanity Fair, as everyone knows, right? Most of us have heard about that one. I've seen good stuff. This is like a year and a half ago in Marie Claire. I'm not sure. You'd have to check on that. But there are some sources out there. The simplest thing would be like commondreams.org or going to KPFA website. There's certain journalists out that still, have their own websites. Greg Palast, stuff about elections, just top notch, top rate stuff. Glenn Greenwald. There are people out there. You just got to go to their website, and then from looking at those, you'll find other people. Jim Hightower still has a website, Hightower Lowdown. Some accurate information there. He was the Assistant Secretary of Agriculture for state of Texas. Yeah, so there's some information out there, and just like with the education and just like with the healthcare, learning the stuff yourself, figuring out what the heck is actually going on, not what these other people are telling you. I mean, that's just human life. That's life on Earth. Is you really have to make your own decisions. You really have to get your own information, and you have to know where the sources are to get it. Um, and they're out there. They're still out there. You can educate yourself on education, on special education if you have a sped kid. But it takes focus and learning and effort and time, like really anything worth it. If you don't spend the time on it, then it's a roll of the dice. You know, you might get the right healthcare, you might not. You might get some decent education, you might not. You might get a decent school board, you might not. Odds of a decent school board are pretty low. So that's another thing I've noticed, like the option on school boards. So I worked at a number of districts, and almost every time there's something wrong with the school board. So keep an eye out for that if you're in education at all. Uh, so educate yourself, stay on top of it, keep interacting with people, whether it's to get information or just like if you have, this works for credit cards and bills and things. Just stay on top of it. Don't just let it go and ignore it. You can set up alerts on your phone, or just the old school thing is, once a month, sit down and just contact everybody, take a day, make sure everything is okay still. You can do that if you like. Makes it, might take a little more time, but it's pretty comprehensive. You can do that. Yeah, a lot, a lot of things. So this one size fits all thing. So it's really about not outsourcing your own authority, like as a human, you have inherent authority, inherent rights. We hold these truths to be self-evident. People have inherent rights, inherent authority to live, to take action, to do what they need to do to take care of themselves in the world. And when you outsource that authority to anyone else, a teacher, a doctor, a lawyer, uh, God forbid, a website, a social media platform, a politician, you not only will it negatively affect you in that way, it eventually, you might get lucky a couple times, but you're giving away yourself. You're giving away really your authority. You're giving away who you are. You're giving away your ability to be a functioning individual, to be someone who can think and act and make their own choices, and not just be something that obeys whatever it's told by any authority figure. And a lot of these people, I think we're beginning to see, are incompetent. Then you don't want your life to be run by incompetent people. And again, I realize that there are a huge number of competent people out there. There are amazing people in every field. I've met them. I've worked with them. I know them. They're everywhere. Just incredible, great people who are just so on the ball. And I'm so glad to work with or have, be my doctor. But I've had to find them. I mean, this is another thing think I could share here, is that in every field I have found, there are these echelons of, there's the large group of people that are the average, whatever, but there's always someone who's really good at it. And then there's somebody who's perfect at it, whatever it is. And usually the people who are better at it cost more money. So it really comes down to money. But I have found that when I had the opportunity, if I could do it, if I could possibly afford it, I've gone for the more expensive person. Now, they're not always, it's just like with wine, if you have any knowledge of wine, this is how doctors and therapists and lawyers, it works like wine. You can get a really good, inexpensive one, but it's very rare. You can also get a really expensive one that's crappy. So, and there's a matter of taste as well, right? So you want something that's a good fit for you. And that's how all these fields work. Uh, so, and just like there can be a really great deal on an amazing wine, maybe it's not one of the 10 best wines in the world, but it can be really great, right? And you've gotten a really good, you went to the wine club or whatever, you got a really great deal on it. And now you can get the same thing with the doctor. That makes it more difficult with managed care, but especially if you're paying yourself. I know that in my healthcare, I went to a therapist and they weren't covering that. So I had to go find my own therapist and just pay out of pocket, right? So since I was doing that, I might as well have someone good, right? And I have managed with coaches, with therapists, with acupuncturists. I mean, you name it, yoga teachers, to find the most amazing people. Just don't just stop with go to the first person you find, do your research, go around, look for the really great person. And then sometimes they're remarkably inexpensive for what they're giving you. They may be like their price may be just the same as average, but they may be incredibly, incredibly amazing. And I've had a couple of the people as guests on my podcast as well. So I'm going to check some of them out because there's some really, really great people, and they might not be famous, but they really know what they're doing. They really know what they're talking about, and they can really, really help you in a way that, the average person is just not going to be able to. So it might cost a little more. It might not, but go out and look for the great people. And with that, all I can say is what I did was just do the research, use my intuition a little bit, see how the person was. Sometimes you have to go to them once and go, okay, yeah, no, this isn't working. Be willing to bail out, quit. Go once. If it doesn't work for you, go to someone else, right? So I've done that quite a bit. When I was younger, I first went to therapists. I bailed out a few times because just wasn't a good fit for me, but also wasn't what I was looking for. And what I'm looking for is someone who's really good. Like there are some coaches I've had that have just changed my life. Just incredible, just incredible. Therapists as well. Um, some great people out there, great, amazing people. So why not, and some of them are really, really busy because they're so great and everybody knows it, but a lot of them aren't because people don't really know it yet. So there's some real great opportunities there. If you're looking for a professional of any kind, whether it's a qigong teacher or whatever, a yoga teacher, acupuncturist, acupressurist, whatever, whatever different kind of therapist, whatever different kind of doctor. There's some great ones out there. Now with medical doctors, it's a little harder. You're not usually paying cash. And with the managed care system, we all know that's difficult to navigate. So that's an area but you still can, I've found, there's a little bit of wiggle room there. You can move around. I've had a couple really great people in the last few years. So they're still out there. Amazingly. It's amazing, but they're still there. They're still there. Don't just take the first thing you're handed. Go get the good one because it makes all the difference. I don't emphasize this enough. It makes all the difference. Here's an example. One time I think the first time I went to acupuncture, I went, okay, and I'll get this. And I tried it. Went in, I went, and I walked out and went, well, maybe that did something. I don't know. And then later I went to another acupuncturist years later. And luckily the first one wasn't a disaster, but I wasn't really sure. And so then, and I found this acupuncturist, this woman, and well, one thing I learned about her or learned about acupuncture was it wasn't just acupuncture. She was doing acupuncture, but then she was doing cupping. I'll have to do a whole nother video on that. But ooh, her method of acupuncture was to continue to do different things until whatever condition you had, whatever was going on, was better. So if it was a physical muscle tendon thing, like you pulled a muscle or something, she would just work on you until you were done, until you were healed or really, really close to it. And whether it was heat or massage or the electrostim therapy with the needles, either combine that or don't. And she would just go from thing to thing to thing. And then I remember I would have I picked up like this, however heavy those bags of cement are, 80 pounds or 50 pounds, whatever they are. And my back was just blown out. It was like I was in agony. I somehow was able to get there in my car. I couldn't really sit in the seat properly. I was in agony. And she just worked on it for like an hour and a half. And when I walked out of there, I was like 95% better. The next morning, I was fine. I remember I would walk in there with just terrible things, and so many times, and I would walk out 100% better an hour later. And then I was traveling somewhere. I went to another acupuncturist, and I walked out, and it was like they stuck needles in me. I walked out an hour later. I didn't feel any different at all. Didn't really seem to do anything. So that's another thing. Don't give up on acupuncture because you go in and it doesn't work, or anything else, really. It's just likely you just have someone that's not very experienced at it or doesn't really know what they're doing. So finding that person is incredibly important in your life, if you really want to thrive in your life. And it's just night and day from finding someone who's not like that. And I found this with therapists as well. I had therapists who was like, God, that was not only helpful, it was a bit just not helpful. It was just a bit distressing, so I got, but then I found one that was just transformative. I was just changed my life. I just was so much happier, so much more joyful. Just everything changed. Yeah. So hold out for the good person. Find them. They're out there. There's so many of them. It might take some time in different fields to find the great person, but you can certainly find someone who's pretty good, better than average. And like I said, sometimes they're more expensive, but sometimes they're not. So yeah. And circling back, this is the one size fits all thing. The people who are good, the good therapists, the good acupuncturists, the good doctors, the ones who see you as a human, realize that you have your own uh, internal authority, that they see the situation, right? And so they're treating you, not giving you one size fits all answers to everything or solutions or surgeries or whatever it is. So, and that's really what we're looking for here. So whether you're looking for a school or a doctor or an acupuncturist, you want that good person you want, regardless of what they charge, that good place that you want is the place that's not one size fits all, the person who doesn't think that way. And some of them exist within these systems. Most of them don't. Most of them are outside of the conventional systems in some way, are still in some area where they can have an independent office. Like this is a good thing about the acupuncture. acupuncturists, coaches, therapists, people like that haven't been gobbled up by the managed care system. Hopefully that will never happen, knock on wood. So they're free to treat the individual, and they're not mired in that one size fits all model. So, and really, those are the politicians you want to vote for, are the ones that are like that. And again, the same thing there. I mean, some of the people that are running for office are fantastic, are incredible, right? But most are not, especially after they've been there a while, since the system itself is corrupt. Not great things happen to you. You really have to be special to kind of survive in that kind of environment. Uh, we see that in all kinds of systems, whether it's a corporate system or a governmental system. When the system is more supportive, the people in it thrive more, obviously. So at a Waldorf school, the kids do better. I mean, people do better in, I don't know, uh, the Marine Corps than they do maybe in another area of the military, because there's a more supportive system there, right? And certain police forces, not supportive system for the people in it, or something like the what is the Drug Enforcement Agency or whatever, that not very supportive environment for the officers to be working in. So it's not conducive to their health and their effectiveness. So it's a whole nother issue, but it'd be great if we could go look at some of these systems and look at the ones that are working and maybe model the ones that aren't working off of those. Because there's a lot of great systems out there and a lot of great organizations that have great people, and they tend to turn out much better people because the system is better. And it's not one size fits all in general. So maybe in some ways, but overall, the better systems tend to not be that way. So yeah, one size fits all. I think I'm gonna wrap it up pretty quick here. Um, I've touched on a couple of different things that I think I'll probably talk about in another time, but really the takeaway is do your research. Don't just trust the word of one person, and certainly do not trust the word of flyers that come into your mailbox or newspaper or television or any of that. Um, you know, there's some truth, there's some great things in the New York Times or wherever, right? But, there's also a lot missing. So it's not a comprehensive view by any means of anything. So learn from yourself, learn where the good places to look are. What's, whatever's going on with you. Like, say, if you have a kid in special education, you want to focus on that. Maybe that's really important for you, right? If you have a business, you want to focus on, that area, right? If you have a medical condition, then focus on the healthcare issue, trying to learn. You can't necessarily tackle all this stuff at once, but, excuse me, but whatever area is most important for you, really do the research, find out about it. And part of the research now is finding out where to do the research, finding out where to get good information. You can maybe start with an AI, start with whatever. In the political area, whatever, you could look at uh, KPFA. In the medical area, I would start with maybe an AI and go from there. Because and you eventually can get to these websites that are clearly accurate. And a good skill to have is the ability to be able to judge when you're being lied to, or be able to see what's a scam is. And I'm not saying we all are born with that, but it's something to have in the back of your mind or think about, because there's so much of it out there, so many scams, so many lies, and it's not just contained to uh, the black market, the criminals, the things, the way it was in my youth, more, the things that were shady were in this kind of shady, dark area. Now they seem to be in all the standard, normal systems, things like that would have been criminal in the past are not technically illegal anymore, but still are definitely not helpful to have to deal with, like insurance companies, uh, pharmaceuticals. I mean, there are some areas where things have gotten dark. So find out where to get the information for yourself. You're gonna have to do some research and try and just set the intention that I'm going to learn to slowly learn to be able to make choices for myself, and I'm going to learn to be able to research things, and I'm going to learn to be able to tell. We all have a common sense, a kind of instinct, kind of just you don't have to do anything except just say, I have the intention to kind of develop this instinct, to have this instinct come to the surface, and maybe, see what happens. Maybe it will. Maybe, the next time you look at something, you think, that's not right. What's that feeling I'm having? Oh, I don't trust this. And I think we're all having those feelings, but they're so frequent, looking at advertising and things all the time, that we don't even notice them anymore. So that part of us is still there, but we're not noticing it. So maybe just set your intention to notice that part of yourself again. Notice the part of you that's going, you know what? I just don't feel like that's right. So I'm not making any pronouncements about it. I'm not saying it's awful. I don't need to tell anybody else about it, but I'm not going to do that. Or I'm not going to believe that until I see something more convincing than what I've seen. And that's whether you're being talked to by a teacher, a politician, it does anybody really. And this brings us to trust. People have to earn your trust. They have to earn it. They have to prove themselves. So if, like, say you're trusting a doctor with your life, that's a pretty high bar of proof. They have to prove that to you. They think it's just a gift often that because they have a degree or whatever experience that you should trust them, but that's not correct. Nobody gets a free pass on trust, no matter what their credentials are, unless you know them. You or have a lot of information on them. A lot of other people have talked to you. You know what I mean? You have to have the evidence to create the trust. If there's no evidence there, if you've never seen this person before, you've never heard anything about them, you don't know anything about them, they're just a person to you. You don't trust them. So I wouldn't listen to them if you don't trust them. And you can't trust them if you have no information on them. So it's not, trust is earned, is not given away. And that's not a refusal to trust someone. It's simply the way it works. That's what trust is. It is something that is learned. If you've given it away, you don't actually trust them. You're not trusting them. You're just doing it without trust. And I think, maybe that's the key to survival in the one size fits all world, the one size fits all systems, is to cultivate your own common sense, your own instinct. You know what's right and wrong. You know when something that's fishy. Just trust that voice, trust that part of yourself. And then it takes some work to go find the right thing, whatever that is. I mean, I thought, I was saying you could just start whatever area is important to you, whatever's the most important area. Or you can just do it all the time, do it everywhere, because it'll be good. And really it can just, I've met so many great people doing things like this, and so many amazing Amazing people out there. All right, so now I am really going to wrap it up for today. And feel free to message whatever platform this is on. You can go to the website. You can always send a message or email me, authenticlife9@gmail.com. So contact me if you would like to. And remember to like or follow, I don't know what platform you're hearing this on, but whatever one it is, you can follow and subscribe and like and share and whatever terminology they have for it. Hi, guys. If you could like, subscribe, follow, share, that way I can help bring you more information and better podcasts in the future. Thanks.